The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
If I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Tuesday, April 19th, 2022. My name is Emma Vigeland, in for Sam Seder, who will be back next week. And this is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, environmental historian Troy Vettese, and environmental engineer Drew Pendergrass, authors of Half-Earth Socialism, a plan to save the future from extinction, climate change, and pandemics. Meanwhile, a federal judge in Florida has overturned the mask mandate on planes and other public transit. She was appointed by, guess who, Donald Trump? More on that in a bit. Regrouped Russian forces have begun their offensive in the eastern Donbass region, however, although military strikes continue throughout other parts of Ukraine. Pro-Russian Ukrainian separatists have been fighting in the Donbass for 8 years, and now Russian troops will likely be directly involved. After its weekend assaults on the Al-Aqsa Mosque, Israel has begun air raids in the Gaza Strip, ostensibly in retaliation for the terrorist attacks within Israel in the weeks prior. However, this is a consistent pattern during Ramadan. And never forget, this is in the context of an occupation and one actor has all the power. Ron DeSantis has decided to ban dozens of proposed math textbooks because they had language about being kind to others in them. Seriously. And in union news, Apple employees at the Grand Central Terminal location here in New York City have signed union cards. They are calling themselves the Fruit Stand Workers United, and they could be the first union in the history of Apple. Solidarity with them. And lastly, Mayor Eric Adams is reportedly considering putting metal detectors in the entrances of subway stations.
Oh, nice. Let's raise fares to pay for that.
Not cumbersome at all. And it wouldn't target specific people, I'm sure, and it wouldn't make mistakes, not allow people to get on trains in time. Let's make the subway system more inefficient. All this and more on today's program. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. It is Tuesday, Newsday Tuesday normally, but we do have a guest this week because Sam is out. So how this is working is, I know some people have been asking, Sam had got COVID last week. He's thankfully doing better. It's all around New York right now. Bradley, hope I'm not outing you. He had a close contact, so it's just myself and... Where are you? Yes, there you go. It just does not sound as good without the mic.
Yeah, actually, and the studio ends won't be able to hear Bradley because he's not coming through OBS.
So, okay. Okay, well,
yeah.
Stop talking because they can't hear you. So
But,
yes, only text us.
But yeah, Bradley, you can
chat.
be a disembodied voice and talk to only us. So that's a good skill you have.
Right, you'll be the voice in our heads. So yeah, but Bradley's out, so it's just myself and Matt today. But yes, Sam's out. His kids have spring break this week. Last week was when he had COVID. So I think this must be the longest he's not done a show or at least even a pre-recorded show.
It is absolutely I started in fall 2015. There's not been 2 straight weeks where Sam hasn't at least put out a pre-recorded broadcast. So definitely the longest stretch. He's probably
Yeah.
going absolutely insane.
I can't even imagine what's going on in his brain right now in terms of that. But a reminder too, I want to remind you all of that schedule, and also we are fast approaching, less than a month away from the Boston show, May 15th at the Wilba Theater in Boston. Check it out. You can go to majority.fm to find tickets. There's only a few left. We mostly have them sold out at this point. So check it out. Boston show, the big live. But now let's get into this this decision by the federal judge in Florida. So yesterday, a federal judge in Florida struck down the federal mask mandate on public transit travel. So not just public transit, but large scale transit like airplanes, buses, trains, etc. This was just a few days after the CDC had extended that same mask mandate through May 3rd, as we've been seeing an increase of COVID cases in many pockets of the country, the Northeast, New York City being one of those pockets. The decision said that individual airlines will get to make this decision. Companies can decide what they want to do. The judge is problematic, and we'll get to her in a minute, but here's some footage compiled by the Wall Street Journal of the jubilant passengers removing their masks, sometimes in the middle of a flight, when they got this news via workers on the airplane, etc.
Couldn't help but notice a few people still wearing their masks in that.
Oh
video.
yeah, there's a few Twitter threads of people who were in the middle of that getting announced, like, I am doubling down on this K95, etc. But continue.
If you choose to, you may remove your mask. If you remain concerned or you're compromised, you certainly can keep your mask on.
Can you put? Yeah, that's not how it works. Your mask does help protect you, especially if it's an N95, KN95, etc. But the masking of other people is what is going to also help protect you. That is primarily the purpose of masking on public transport.
I mean, truly one of the stupidest things I've seen in my lifetime is all the people that pretended like this was like facing Orwellian style or Brave New World style tyranny.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is like what it looks like for that Berlin Wall to fall, is the pilot saying, yeah, you can take your mask down if you're immunocompromised. Just, stay masked up. Good for you. Good luck. Like,
it's a historic moment,
embarrassing.
Matt. I don't know why
Yeah,
you're
it's just,
downplaying
I
it.
mean, it's really like Juneteenth all over again.
Oh, jeez. Get going.
The CDC continues recommending wearing a mask in public transit.
All right, so I mean, you couldn't read all the text there, but essentially that was Jen Psaki responding to it. They are disappointed in the decision, they say, and they're going to be looking into whether or not the DOJ might appeal. But I'm not so sure they will, because that Wall Street Journal, if you're listening on the podcast, kind of video that had some captions in it was mentioning how airline industry groups have been lobbying for this for quite a while. And that is the case. As soon as this decision was handed down, all of the airlines were like, yes, optional. We want to attract as many customers as possible. I mean, I would be very fearful for their employees who have to interact with a bunch of people, hundreds of people, sometimes on a daily basis on separate flights, especially if you're a flight attendant. But, I mean, more power to the executives who are happy to put their employees in harm's way, even though we did see in some of those videos Some employees, I'm sure, are going to be happy about this because it's cumbersome, fine, understandable. It's a difficult part of one's profession,
It
but
sucks to
it's
wear a mask,
for
but it's not dying.
it's not dying, right? It is for public good. But now on to this judge who made the decision, because I think this is important. Here's from Rolling Stone. Trump appointed judge deemed, quote, not qualified by Bar Association voids mask mandate on planes and other travel. This woman is really just skyrocketed to the top. A Trump appointed federal judge in Florida has voided a national mask mandate for airplanes and other transportation. Wearing a mask cleans nothing, U.S. District Judge Catherine Kimball Mizell wrote in her decision on Monday. At most, it traps virus droplets, but it neither sanitizes the person wearing the mask nor sanitizes the conveyance. Right? I'm not saying that
Conveyance?
right. Conveyance. That is not the standard. I did not realize there was some sort of judicial standard on total and complete sanitization in order to meet some sort of public health criteria. No, it is one method that helps protect people who are traveling on airplanes and other transportation. It helps other people when everyone has to comply, and it helps oneself if you are wearing a mask.
It's a mitigation measure, albeit a meager one, which means we should be doing a whole lot else on top of it.
Yeah.
But it is one that, it's valuable.
They treat it as a zero-sum game, and it's like this straw man that is in order to just discredit public health officials, and just because they feel mildly uncomfortable in masks. Mizell, 35, was only 8 years out of law school at the University of Florida when Trump appointed her to a lifetime position in 2020. The Daily Beast noted at the time that her only trial experience was as an intern, and that she held 4 clerkships, including one for Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Mizell was rated, quote, not qualified by the American Bar Association prior to her appointment, citing her lack of experience. So, I mean, just another case of the Trump administration not giving an F and stacking these courts with complete political activists, and it's smart for their purposes, because I don't think the Biden administration is going to have the gumption to have the DOJ try to appeal this. They see COVID as a political liability. That's why at the State of the Union, no one was wearing a mask. That's why Biden was leading applause lines about COVID being over. This is something they perceive as a political liability, so they are going to sacrifice public health. And let's be clear, it's the conservatives and the Republicans who are leading the charge here.
Yeah.
But the Biden administration is going to be too cowardly, this is my guess, to actually do anything aggressively about this.
So all the people were saying, you're just fear-mongered about COVID. You're getting what you want. Good job.
The Senate voted last month to overturn the public health order requiring masks on airplanes and public transit. And as the Post points out, 21 states, most of which are led by Republicans, sued the government seeking to end the mask mandate. CEOs from airline companies have also urged Biden to lift the mandate. Maybe these airlines can actually start to hire people back and use the government bailout money that they received, so that the customer experience is like actually a usable one that functions in society, regardless of the masking, right? Where your flights aren't being canceled all over because these companies are too greedy to actually hire people back to fill the new traffic that is coming through as people begin to travel more.
Yeah, and the thing about like letting this decision go up to the airlines, the problem with that is the problem you had in when states took this with this tack with restaurants. Any restaurant can decide if they want to do masks or not. Then like the problem is you have to enforce that, and then it's on the restaurants individually to enforce that. So you put in more of those workers even more on the front line of somebody saying, hey, Bennigan's didn't require me to wear a mask. Why is TGI Fridays? And I'm going to get in your face about it.
Yep.
So like good luck to thinking that this is going to lead to a better customer experience. It's going to lead to more infections, and I mean hopefully that some of the airlines continue to enforce it.
They're not. Basically, none of them did. To your point, in response, they all it was all a race to be the most anti-mask because they perceive it as a way that, something cumbersome on the customer, and that they want to drive up their profits more, and that people don't want to fly because of it.
Yeah,
I
if you're at
guess.
risk, don't fly. We'll make it up with the people that don't care about you.
With that said, we have some advertisements today. Did you know that 1 out of 3 Americans report being sleep deprived, and their sheets could be the problem? Luckily, Cozy Earth provides the softest, most luxurious, and best temperature regulating sheets. Cozy Earth has been featured on Oprah's Most Favorite Things list 4 years in a row. I mean, come on. That means it's the good stuff. Made from super soft viscose from bamboo, Cozy Earth sheets breathe so you sleep at the perfect temperature all year round. And with thousands of 5-star reviews, it's no wonder that Cozy Earth sheets have become the bedding of choice for interior designers and celebrities. Now, I just ordered my Cozy Earth comforter. There's a comforter, and it's like a duvet that comes on top of it. And I have not put it together yet because it just arrived, but I have felt it, and I can attest to this. Cozy Earth even offers a 100-night sleep trial, which means you have up to 100 nights to sleep on it. Wash it, try it out. If you're not completely in love, just send it back for a full refund. There's a 10-year warranty, and Cozy Earth sheets come in 4 new colors. And for a limited time, save 35% on Cozy Earth bedding. That is a huge discount. Go to cozyearth.com/majority and enter my special promo code majority at checkout to save 35% now. That's what I used to get my new comforter. Majority. That's cozyearth.com/majority, and be sure to enter majority at checkout for 35% off. And lastly, it is still happening, folks. 420 is tomorrow. And so, this 420 sale with Sunset Lake Seder and the Majority Report, in partnership with the Innocence Project, it's still going on. It ends, though, on April 24th at 11:59 p.m., just before midnight. 40% off smokables like hemp flower, pre-rolls, and keef, and 30% off everything else. There's no promo code needed. The products are already discounted on the website. Sunset Lake Seder and the Majority Report are teaming up to turn everyone's favorite stoner holiday into a fundraising opportunity for the Innocence Project, a great organization working to undo the damage of the war on drugs. Here's how it works. Visit sunsetlakesebede.com starting Wednesday, April 13th. It's already started. Sunset Lake Seder will be offering 40% off smokables like hemp flower, pre-rolls, and keef, and every other product will be 30% off, even my beloved tincture, which I used last night to get to sleep. Sunset Lake Seder will be donating 4.20% of sales to the Innocence Project, a nonprofit organization that works to free the innocent, prevent wrongful convictions, and create fair, compassionate, and equitable systems of justice for everyone. Sunset Lake Seder is a majority employee-owned business that donated more than $26,000 last year to anti-drug war organizations, animal shelters, union strike funds, nature conservation, food shelves, and refugee resettlement organizations. Again, visit Sunset Lake CBD. Maybe it works if I space it out. .com to take advantage of the discounts and help Majority Report raise money for a great organization. Sale ends April 24th. Make sure you check it out. All right, folks. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to be joined by Troy Vettese and Drew Pendergrass. Be right back. We are back, and we are joined now by environmental historian Troy Vettese and environmental engineer Drew Pendergrass, authors of Half Earth Socialism, a plan to save the future from extinction, climate change, and pandemics. Thank you so much for both for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Of course. So the concept of half Earth socialism, just give us a sense of what you mean by that.
I'll start. So Half Earth Socialism is basically two projects in one, and one is to really think through what socialism is. And we make an argument, because I think a lot of left-wingers can't really give you a straight answer, or maybe they will harken back to a Keynesian kind of post-war welfare state, and or maybe some kind of anarchist utopia where there's no state and people can do whatever they want, or who knows what, right? Or maybe some kind of cybernetic future of like where computers will figure everything out. So we were dissatisfied with that approach, and then we tried to think through using an engagement with economic theory, with planning theory, with ecology, and new climate sciences to think through ways to build a socialist society and then create mechanisms to have an economy without markets. And so that's, and there are many ways to do that. People can decide different levels of energy production, how they produce their energy, how they produce their food, and kinds of transportation. But we should decide collectively how we will live, basically. So that's one part. The second part, and why we call it Half Earth Socialism, is that when we approached those questions, we came up with what we thought would be the best solution, and that would basically be giving people a somewhat modest but still decent living standard, lower than is maybe normal in the global north, but much higher for most places in the global south. It would also incorporate veganism. It would incorporate public transportation. It would incorporate rewilding on a massive scale. So that means increasing the amount of nature preserves from around 10 or 15% to around half of all land, and to have a transition to renewable energy. So these are the components that we see to be extremely important to solve not just the climate crisis, but also the problem of pandemics and extinction. And we argue that these different problems have to be thought together, and socialism is the best way to achieve that.
Right, and so that's when you say half that Earth is protected. That's where you get half Earth socialism, that concept, right? Where the idea is half the Earth is walled off, protected for habitats for non-humans. Is that a fair characterization?
Well, I think we would say that. So there is a sort of in the conservationist movement a half Earth sort of movement that does maybe push from that more strict distinction, strict non-human nature preserves. We point out in the book that biodiversity is often higher on indigenous lands than in nature preserves. So we don't need to follow that exact conservationist line. Half Earth socialism would involve indigenous sovereignty, for example. But the point there is that to protect against the ongoing sixth mass extinction in Earth's history, where we're losing species at a very high rate, and we should care about that, not just because we should care about the other things on this planet, but because it impacts us. This planet keeps us alive, it keeps everything going. So we should care about that, and that's driven by ecosystem loss. So we should take seriously this need to have stable ecosystems, and that involves ecosystems functioning healthy in a healthy way. And so there are many ways to achieve that. It doesn't need to be one picture, but it does need to be functioning in a healthy way.
I was overly simple because you critique or expand on the concept from E.O. Wilson, who at least in the beginning part of your book, whereas I guess it's a bit of a starting off point, but you kind of yes and that concept. Do you mind talking about it from its origin versus how you expanded upon it?
Sure. So E.O. Wilson works with other ecologists in the 1960s, and they find a relationship between land area and biodiversity. They were actually studying islands at that point in time, so larger islands have more biodiversity. And you actually can work out a pretty mathematical relationship to figure out that how much biodiversity you would expect in a certain land area. So what they discovered a few decades later was that nature preserves as we have them now act as islands surrounded by, fields for agricultural produce, or pastures of cities, of mines, or whatever it is. But because we have taken so much of nature, these nature preserves are separate from each other in other wild areas. And therefore, if we only protect around 10 or 15% of the world, then we can expect quite severe biodiversity loss in the rest of the world, and that would be around 50%. So that's what they expect based on this relationship of land area to biodiversity. So if you want to prevent that loss, you would actually increase the amount of protected areas, and that would, to us, they propose 50%, which would preserve around 85% of species. So you still would lose 15% of species, which is not great, but it's not nearly as bad as previous mega extinctions. And there have been other conservationists who have worked on this problem, and we get into the intellectual history of this idea. So Wilson is important, but we also have these South African conservationists, led by Ian Player, and then there's also an American group called the Wildlands Network, led by Dave Foreman, and they don't have very good politics. So Wilson is, that puts it very mildly. They're very Malthusian, they're racist, colonialist, they work with Rhodesian mercenaries, they like the apartheid, government, they want to keep out, Mexican immigrants, all this really awful stuff. And then E.O. Wilson, who definitely has been criticized a lot for his views on sociobiology. He has also worked with some, race scientists we've discovered recently with some investigative journalism. So he's definitely not a perfect figure, and we're not trying to whitewash any of that. Indeed, our book tries to really criticize the environmental movement and say that conservation is really important, but we have to deal with this colonial past so we can make a broader coalition. And then the last thing I'll say is the conservation movement we have now, it maybe isn't as wicked as it was before, but they still depend on philanthropists. They depend on people like Ted Turner and other billionaires to give lots of money and buy up a lot of land. And this is not a good solution either. So we're saying socialists should care about conservation, but it needs to be a socialist conservation.
Right. And so can you do you mind expanding a little bit historically on the conservation movement as a whole? And I think you laid out well where it needs updating and an embedding of socialist ideology, but beforehand, where were the emphases wrong in particular?
I'll be brief, and then I'm sure Drew wants to jump in. So, we go back quite a ways in the book. We go back to the 18th century to think about different approaches to environmental thought. And we say there's a Hegelian approach, and that is part of the Marxist tradition as well. And that means we see history as a story of people dominating nature, what Hegel calls humanizing nature, and that means we work in the environment and we transform it and we instill it with human consciousness, and the end of history will be a utopia where all of nature has been humanized. Like everything is a canal or a field or a garden and so forth, right? And that's one tradition, and that has many problems, which maybe we can get into. And the other would be also from the late 18th century is Malthus's attack on utopianism at that time, and he says basically that humans will always have too many children if there's any kind of prosperity that will lower living standards, and it only can be what he calls positive checks of epidemics or starvation or war that will then lower population. So utopia is impossible. And then Malthusian views have become extremely important for the environmental movement in the 60s and 70s, where they see most environmental problems as caused by having too many people, and therefore they have to control population. And that's really
that's
the
very
problem
dangerous, right? I mean, you see the right in modern times adopting that to a degree as well. I would say that the more forward-thinking fascist types. Tucker Carlson has been flirting with that the concept of overpopulation. That's where some of those roads lead.
Oh yeah, I mean we've had eco-fascist mass shooters that would say that there's too many poor brown people and white people need to control other populations through genocide. And again these environmentalists in like the 60s and 70s, they were quite open in saying like we need to stop food aid, we need to let people starve to death. And these are like the cuddly environmentalists that people like, such as like Paul Ehrlich or even like the Limits to Growth project and all that. And then there's worse people, of course, like Garrett Hardin, who comes up with the tragedy of the commons, which is a very widely known concept. He was directly tied to the white nationalist movement in the United States. So there's definitely a really ugly history for sure that leads up to the present. And our point is when we write this book is to say that environmentalists and conservationists really have to give up Malthus, right? And that's important too, because the problem that we're facing with the environmental crisis isn't caused by overpopulation. That's not a major part of the problem, right? The cause of the crisis is capitalism, and then also, if you aren't Malthusian and you're not racist or you're not colonialist, then you can make better coalitions to achieve your goals.
Right. Drew, did you want to jump in?
Well, I'll just add real quick that there was a reason that the person that Marx hated more than anyone pretty much was Malthus. Like Marx calls him a plagiarizer, which is Marx's worst insult that he can offer in his writing, which is sort of hilarious. Because Malthus is writing against projects of liberation through this angle. So it's really important to remove that.
And in terms of, Drew, I want to ask you a bit about this before we move on from some of the concepts that you brought up there. Biodiversity loss and the mass extinction, what we're experiencing right now, no one is talking about this. What does that look like, and what we're going through right now, and what does that loss mean?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I think briefly earlier, this is the 6th mass extinction in Earth's history. So it's especially strange mass extinction because we're going through a mass extinction of insects. That's only happened once before in Earth's 4 billion year history. So we talk a lot about the consequences of this. I think some things that people hear about are a little bit like pollinator loss. So pollinators keep our food coming. So that's really bad. Healthy ecosystems sequester more carbon. We talk about this in the book a good bit about how, if you have, beavers and apex predators and all these things, that creates these healthy ecosystems that are able to really function better in the carbon system. We talk about the biological pump in the ocean where creatures all live in the ocean, they die and they sink to the bottom, taking carbon with them. So there's this sort of carbon cycle aspect of biodiversity too. It's a real tragedy that we're living in this mass extinction, and it's something that we should consider on the scale of climate change as a crisis to be confronted and to overcome. Troy,
If I could add a little
please.
bit, yeah. So I mean, it's funny that people like saying, the Anthropocene all the time. That's a very trendy concept, especially amongst environmentalists in the academy. But what's strange about it is like the real marker for the Anthropocene would be the fossil record, right? It will suddenly see all these species disappearing, but people don't focus about biodiversity. If you talk to ecologists and environmental scientists, they'll tell you that the 6th extinction is as serious as climate change, and perhaps even more serious. But yeah, no one's really talking about it because people don't really care about animals at some level, and I think that's a huge problem. And in this book, we're saying the left needs to care about animals. And I would also say that in some ways it's like an unsexy topic, because the main people want to say, well, climate change is causing extinction. It definitely is. But the main driver is still land use change. And the main cause of land use change is animal husbandry. So when people eat more meat, it's going to cause more extinctions, but people don't want to politicize what we eat. And that's a huge part of this problem.
Right. So how in terms of Well, one, I want to just touch on the land use point, because the capitalist solutions to climate change don't really reckon with this. Can you expand on that a bit? In fact, they exacerbate it. Some of the solutions that seem sexy to environmental advocacy groups, or even if there's like, these big conferences where they're talking about solutions, the usage of land is inherent in those proposals, and if you don't mind, touching on why that falls short.
Yeah, I think one really interesting thing that people don't really know about. So people hear about the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reports every once in a while when they come out. And, this is where lines like we have 12 years to stop climate change come in, which I don't love that framing. But the way these reports work is that a bunch of people around the world run climate models under various sort of social and economic scenarios that are proposed, that are kind of, you run an economy model, like you run a capitalist economy with a climate model attached, and you see what happens in the future under different assumptions. And a lot of these models that get low amounts of global warming, 1.5 or 2 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial average, have a lot of carbon dioxide removal in the model. And the main way that they do carbon dioxide removal in the model is something called bioenergy with carbon capture and storage. The idea is that you have massive plantations of trees. The trees absorb carbon as they grow. You cut down the trees and you burn them for electricity. And then you capture the carbon emitted by the trees, you liquefy it, and then you bury it deep underground, like reverse oil mining, basically. And a lot of the IPCC models that get to those low amounts of warming have BECS plantations that are about the size of India, 2 Indias worth of land. So this question of land comes up there, and it's very little discussed, probably because it's not going to happen. Like it's very expensive. It'll cause a lot of biodiversity issues. It's not really a serious proposal, but it does come up in these models. And then there's the meat question that Troy was talking about, which is that something like half of our arable land goes to agriculture, and most of that goes to animal agriculture, which doesn't provide a lot of calories, but it does take up a huge amount of land. It leads to monocrops of soybean and corn so that we can feed those animals. It leads to pandemics, right? Because pandemics can develop among these animals. It's a very irrational way of getting food, leaving aside ethical questions, because like animals are designed to like walk around and do things, not to produce muscle for us to eat. So it's not rational way of producing food, and that leads to this land inefficiency. And all these things compete with things like biodiversity, but also things like land use change has led to something like 1/3 of historical emissions, and you can presumably reverse some of that by allowing those ecosystems to return to some more healthy functioning state. So these land questions just keep emerging.
Well, if I could just jump in real quick, I'd say you're asking what are the solutions that are being proposed, right? And I think BECS, and again, this bioenergy and carbon capture and storage, that's important for, I think, climate scientists, but really no other political group. Like no one else is really talking about it, and they like it because it makes their models work, right? As Drew's saying. Then you have, I think, mainstream environmentalists, people like James Hansen, who's well known for being a scientist at NASA and raising the alarm about climate change 30 years ago and so forth. And he's really into nuclear power, and especially a really untested kind of nuclear technology called fast breeders, right? And then which nuclear power doesn't work very well, and this will not happen.
Well, I would love to ask you next to expand on nuclear power, if you don't mind, but keep going.
Sure. And then there's the neoliberal solution, which basically is have scientists, entrepreneurs come up with their own solutions, which probably will be some form of geoengineering, where you have solar radiation management and block out radiation from the sun by putting sulfur aerosols up there with high-flying planes. And this is super cheap. This is being bankrolled by philanthropists like Bill Gates. There's a big center for it at Harvard University and many other places. It's supported by the Democrats and the Republicans, and neoliberal economists and think tanks have been supporting it for a long time. So that's of all these different solutions we're talking about, the idea of having large-scale conservation and veganism is not going to happen under capitalism because it's just too unprofitable. Like the idea of leaving half the world uncommodified is hard to, impossible to imagine. And the mainstream environmentalists have these really pathetic solutions, such as cap and trade, or these BECs, or nuclear. And then the most likely scenario is the most reckless one, and that's geoengineering. So that we're saying the left needs to see the whole problem, right, of the environmental crisis, understand its causes, and then give solutions because otherwise there will be radical, dangerous changes to the biosphere, and we're just going to be bystanders.
Well, it's honestly it's intersectionality, I guess, and also an understanding of environmental policy within socialism more broadly. I mean, that is the concept of your book, but in terms of nuclear power, do you mind talking a bit more about that? Because I've documented my fears about nuclear power on the show quite a bit. The concept of storage under a capitalist system of that kind of waste makes me very nervous, given what we see in oil spills throughout the country. What is your position on some areas of leftists who are pretty bullish on nuclear power being the only way to wean us off of fossil fuels?
I think that this is a really important conversation. So there is a proposal out there from people like James Hansen that Troy was mentioning, which is something like building a new nuclear reactor every week or something like this.
Every 3 days.
To try and really build up a lot of nuclear power. And the idea here is that nuclear is a way to, if you discount carbon emitted from uranium mining and refining and concrete and all that stuff, is a way to decarbonize the energy system, and it does have less carbon emissions. And you can run the nuclear power station 24/7. It's based on a stock, so you mine it and use that energy rather than you gather a flow of energy from the sun or the wind, which is intermittent. So that's sort of the idea here, is that you'd have a grid there, and then you run in, and then you can avoid some of the issues of renewables. The problem with nuclear, there are a few problems. One is that it helps you decarbonize the electricity sector, but a lot of the challenge of the future is electrification. So I think there's this sort of, like, if we just build a bunch of nuclear reactors, climate change will be solved, but it only gets you it's only ever going to be a partial solution from that angle. So there's this like kind of almost weird like cargo cult nature of like, if we could just get people to stop being afraid of nuclear power, then climate change would be over. And that's not true. The other part is that nuclear power plants take a very long time to build historically, and they're very expensive, which is why there are these fast breeder reactors that Troy was mentioning, some new technology that's being proposed to help with nuclear power. But those technologies don't work very well because, for example, fast breeder reactors, which can use some of the nuclear waste to power themselves, rely on sodium as a coolant. Sodium explodes when exposed to air. It makes it hard to keep the power plant running. So that's sort of why it's had some problems recently. So it's just a technology that I don't think is able to deliver what people want. And then there's also the fears, right? And they're real fears about nuclear dangers. It's not very popular, so it's not the sort of coalition building place. But maybe I'll let Troy go in on the nuclear bashing. I think it's important to just clarify real quick that what we're not saying is like shut down all the nuclear plants tomorrow. It's just skepticism at nuclear as like the Band-Aid for everything. Troy, what were you going to say?
Well, I would also say it's probably not a good idea to have 50-year-old nuclear reactors to run for much longer than they were built for, which is the situation we're in right now, which is not ideal. I agree with a lot of what Drew said, but I would also add that if you build, let's say, 10 times more reactors than we have now, we have around 400 reactors worldwide, you will use up uranium pretty fast, as in like the stocks that we have, and that means that you have to be going after more and more diluted ores, which will take up more energy, and therefore the carbon intensity of nuclear is going to skyrocket, and so then you're then you're wasting your time if it's not a carbon neutral energy supply.
Right.
I would stress one more thing, that the odds of a nuclear accident on the scale of Fukushima or Chernobyl are not negligible. I mean, it's estimated there's a 50% chance of it, something like that happening again over the next 30 years. And if you increase the number of reactors tenfold, then the odds are going to be a lot higher. So, and then as Drew's saying, the environmental movement, which is not a very strong movement, but the only thing they're really good at mobilizing people to fight is nuclear power. And I mean, it emerged as a pacifist anti-nuclear movement in the 60s. So to have mainstream environmentalists to say, oh yeah, we need nuclear power, is like the best way to demobilize the environmental movement, exactly when we need to have broad coalitions and get people to really fight.
Right. And in terms of disasters resulting in things like what we saw with Chernobyl, based on the technology that's available to us now, yes, things might have improved, but my perception is that the presentation of its likelihood, when I read about it in mainstream articles, is downplayed significantly.
I would agree.
I think that's probably fair. Yeah, there's an article Troy's citing here that maybe we can offer as a link later on. I think it's a little downplayed.
Okay.
But there's like bad things that happen all the time, right? I mean, was it a few years ago they just discovered in France that they were setting the cement wrong and all, or the concrete wrong, and then it was cracking all these pipes, and they had no idea until way too late. I mean, there's plenty of also small, again, I know people who work in the nuclear industry, and they say there's like small scale mishaps all the time, right? And people are getting irradiated all the time. And I think, and they keep this hush hush because, yeah, they want to keep popular support for it. They want to freak people out because a lot of these reactors are built very close to large cities. But the danger is real, and it's not going to go away. And I think if you're also going to be experimenting with new nuclear technologies like fast breeders or thorium reactors or fusion, I mean, to then say that's going to be safe, like either it's going to be safe or you're going to run out of uranium. I mean, you can't have it either way, right? And you can't even have that. So
in terms of the vision that you all have laid out, what are some practical ways that you think that everyday folks could contribute to this becoming more of a reality?
Right. So in the book, we kind of hinted at some of the things that we think would be a part of the solution to the environmental crisis. But the other angle of the book is that we want to start a debate where we all are imagining together full solutions to the environmental crisis. So we say this at the beginning of the book, that like we don't. You may disagree with us on various aspects, but we would encourage you to educate yourself, learn about these issues. Buy our book, obviously, and then these things.
That's the first thing you should do.
Yeah, exactly. Think about how these things fit together, and then kind of imagine a future. So we think that this opening up imagining is really important. It's why we produced a video game that comes with the book, where you can play a planner for the future, and you can try whatever technologies or social policies you want, things that we agree with, things that we disagree with. We try and simulate them based on the scientific literature. There's even a real climate model in the game that takes your decisions, calculates emissions, calculates the climate effects, and so you can see that. And that'll be out in a couple of weeks at our website. So that imaginative aspect of like kind of opening the future up, we think is really important. We think that joining movements is really, really important, because participating in movements for change is a way to kind of transform yourself from, this individual subject that's created by neoliberalism, where we think of ourselves only, and become a part of a larger project, a larger change. And the more people that participate in those sorts of movements, the more people we can bring in, the more of a powerful base that we can build that actually can drive the changes we need. And then there are some personal things you can do, like we think that you should give up meat if you can. But obviously, anything that an individual does is not going to be is a drop in the bucket. So it's building these movements, it's opening up your imagination, learning, talking to each other, banding together.
Yeah, I mean, we're saying like, neoliberalism sucks. The future's going to suck, right? We know that.
Yes.
It's going to be inequality, climate disaster, more pandemics, more neoliberalism, or neoliberalism mixed with fascism, right? So I mean, it's going to be, and the idea is that the left, if you're a liberal, if you're a environmentalist, if you're a socialist, it's really think clearly about what kind of society do you want to live in, right? What is necessary to create a society that can provide a good life for everyone, and it can overcome the environmental crisis. Because I think we're past the time when people can just like hand wave and say, oh, workers of the world unite, or a better future is what we need, and another world is possible. We need concrete plans, right? And I think working, first of all, educating yourself about the state of the economy and the environment is important, but also thinking through what we need. Like, think through land use problems, think through food problems. Like, learn a bit of math, learn a bit of science. Drew did an amazing thing for the book where he actually made a linear program where you can figure out what kind of future you imagine is possible or not. You can say, how much energy use do we have? Are we eating meat? How much land are we preserving? What's the extinction rate? How much carbon are we emitting? What's the temperature going to be like? You can figure all that stuff out and then see whether it's possible or not. Because again, like, the land problem is a huge problem, and there's not enough land for everything, or there's also not enough space for all the carbon we have to emit in the atmosphere to do whatever we want. We have to be serious about the solutions that we're willing to fight for. And I think, we're trying to push other leftists to think seriously about power and the society they want. But anyone can do that. Anyone can become a planner. Anyone can become a theorist, I think.
Well, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time today, Troy Vettese. Sorry about that. Environmental historian and environmental engineer Drew Pendergrass, authors of Half-Earth Socialism, A Plan to Save the Future from Extinction, Climate Change, and Pandemics. Thank you both so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Of course. All right, folks, with that, we're going to take a quick break, come back, wrap up the first hour of the show. We are back. We are back. Before we head into the fun half, I wanted to touch on this. So Ron DeSantis, he's, as Matt has been saying, the darling of conservative media right now, and he's doing everything that he can to build up his resume on anti-woke, anti-gay, anti-black pieces of legislation that he's implementing in Florida, so that when he eventually runs for president, his portfolio of hatred is thick. He's also just getting credit for it in conservative media for doing these kinds of things. And now he is in the business of banning books. That's the free speech warriors on the right. In this instance, there were some math textbooks that contained inappropriate material, according to Ron DeSantis. And so here he is at a press conference explaining why these math textbooks, and I'll let you know what the material was in a second, were unfit for children to use.
You do have things like social and emotional learning and some of the other things that are more political in there. In our view on something like math, first, it doesn't meet the standards. But second, math is about getting the right answer. And we want kids to learn to think so they get the right answer. It's not about how you feel about the problem or to introduce some of these other things. There's a right answer and there's a wrong answer. And we want all our students getting the right answers. And so most of the books that did not meet Florida standards for whatever reason happen to be in the early grades. As you get into the older grades, most of those books did meet the standards, but we're going to continue to focus the education on the actual strong academic performance of the students. We don't want things like math to have some of these other concepts introduced. It's not been proven to be effective, and quite frankly, it takes our eye off the ball.
What is the ball? Yeah, he can't really say it out loud, but it's to make sure that there's enough of a firewall for parents who are conservatives who don't want their children learning not to hate people. And Ron DeSantis is going to provide that for them. And also, it's a twofer. Then you also get to target teachers, and if they teach material that might contain social and emotional learning in a context that is math class where it's got to be straightforward, facts over feelings in a math class, right? Hey, those teachers can be fired. It's a great way to undercut teachers unions too. But what is the social and emotional learning that was in these textbooks? Here's from the New York Times. Florida has rejected 42 of 132 math textbooks proposed for use in public school classrooms because they, quote, incorporate prohibited topics or unsolicited strategies, including social emotional learning and critical race theory, according to the state's Department of Education. So take it with a boulder of salt. The state, which announced its decision on Friday afternoon, did not share information on the specific content to which it was objecting, and several publishers told the New York Times they had not yet received documents detailing the state's critiques. At a Monday news conference, Mr. DeSantis highlighted the presence of, quote, social and emotional learning material in the rejected elementary school textbooks. And then they quote some of what you heard there. A review of sample content from one publisher whose elementary school textbooks appear to have been rejected, Big Learning Ideas, showed, and, trigger warning, this is really scary stuff that should not be taught to elementary school kids. Just
Is it going to be that white people are fundamentally bad and can't do good things and should feel ashamed for all of history? Is that
close?
What the math book says?
You get a half a point. Lessons intended to build self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, and social awareness, which, that sounds kind of like Black people aren't terrible.
It sounds like communism.
Yes, and relationship skills. The framework of 5 skills is a popular one in schools across the country and was developed by CASEL, an education nonprofit. In one text, it's graphic stuff. Cartoon animals help build one another's confidence in order to cross a wobbly bridge. In another, a cartoon dog movie star says she feels lonely, and other animals offer to befriend her. We can't have that. We can't have
not
that.
like anything that to sort of activate children's imaginations when they're trying to learn math. Like that would be horrible.
It would be. I mean, and also to, not silo pieces of your education and understanding that your job, whenever you get it as a child, is not to only perceive topics as their surface level tasks, but to have a holistic view of things that also incorporates kindness, maybe helping someone cross a wobbly bridge. No. DeSantis's math classes, in those kinds of classes, you're not helping an old lady cross the street. You're pushing her in front of a bus.
I mean, that's the thing about this stuff is how little of sort of any smoke there is for them to be running around yelling fire. And like this, and so they need like something, right? They need, oh, now it's these math books. There's this sort of like fuzzy language in, because they don't have any actual grooming or critical race or people being shamed for being white or whatever the hell the CRT panic is. So now it's math books are to they give you a participation medal for your feelings or something.
Right. It's also just the politicization of empathy, right? They want to make empathy seem scary. They want to make kindness be associated with weakness or controversy for kids. And if you do that, if you kind of try to stamp out empathy as early as possible, there'll be better warriors in the anti-woke culture war when they come of age. All right, folks, with that, we are going to wrap up the first hour of this program. We're going to head into the fun half. We will be taking your calls. We will be reading your IMs, 646-257-3920. But first, Matt, what's happening on Left Reckoning tomorrow?
Yeah, well, tomorrow we got Elias Cepeda. We're going to be talking about a few things, squad-related, anti-squad-related, and UFC-related. But also go check out our Patreon episode with Lillian Chachurkia on how we do not owe capitalists for the fact that we have liberal rights like free speech, and we should not trust capitalism to spread those rights or protect them. So patreon.com/leftreckoning to get that.
All right, 646-257-3920. And also a reminder, please, live show tickets, May 15th. Going quick. Get them. All right, see you in the fun half.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now, and I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now, and I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now, but I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second. Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomiki.
You did it. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's...
Stop talking for a second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? Is it?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello, is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single freaking day. What's on your mind?
Sports. We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm gonna go throw up.
Libertarians.
They're so stupid, though.
Common sense says, of course.
Gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge met.
I'm positively quivering.
I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-35-501. 1/2. 3/8.
9/11, for instance.
$3,400, $1,900.
6, 5, 4, $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Poop.
You can call it satire. Sam goes with satire.
On top of it all, my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the weak being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick. I gotta jump.
I'm losing it, bro.
2 o'clock. We're already late, and the guy's being a dick. So screw him. Sent to a gulag?
Outrageous.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Love you, bye.
Love you. Bye-bye.
We are back. We are back. We just took a second to open up the phone lines. We'll be taking your calls. Let's take one right off the bat here. Calling from a 359 or 352 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, one sec.
Yeah. It's a little loud back there.
Yo, this is Ken from Charleston.
Ken from Charleston. What's on your mind?
So yeah, your interview today was really good, and it's a topic that I think about a lot. So I just wanted to give my perspective on it.
Sure.
Sorry, one sec. I'm just walking out of my job. So yeah, I actually work for a company that is in the carbon capture industry. So I figured I'd talk a little bit about that because that came up. So he was talking about how they're going to plant, like, you know, all these trees, like trees the size of, you know, the equivalent of the country of India in just like a forest. And then I actually didn't know the part about how they were going to put the trees into carbon sequestration machines and then pump it underground. So basically the reason why we need trees to capture carbon and then we need to like sequester it is because there's mushrooms, fungus that break down trees and then just release the carbon back into the atmosphere. So there's been two periods of Earth's like history, like millions of years ago, where plants have evolved and taken a ton of carbon out of the atmosphere and caused the planet to cool down. And those were the periods of time when there were ice caps. So for most of Earth's history, there actually wasn't ice caps. And that, like, when there was like a fern that evolved to take a ton of carbon out of the atmosphere, and then later trees evolved. And when trees first evolved, there was nothing that could break down trees. And so that's why we have coal, because the trees would basically get buried underground, and then over thousands of years, millions of years, it would turn into coal. But now coal isn't currently being formed anymore because whenever a tree dies, a fungus just breaks it down. But those evolved later. But anyway, none of this is that important. I just thought it was kind of interesting. The more
it's good
important thing
context.
is,
Thank you.
yeah. So yeah, my company is just like breeding trees to be more resistant to fungus and to grow faster. It's like a startup, and then I guess it's like part of the whole carbon credits thing, which is where you, like, companies like mine will grow a tree and then you get a carbon credit from a private accreditation industry or company, and then you can sell that credit to a big company like an airline or a car company, and then they buy a bunch, and then they're like, oh, we have all these carbon credits, so we're carbon neutral. So whenever you're on an airline and they're like, we're carbon neutral, it's like, no, you're not.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's basically that whole industry. But anyway, I think the more important question is like how solving climate change needs to be a cultural shift. And you see a lot of this stuff where it's like, and it was really interesting how he brought up the IPCC report and how they're always modeling a capitalist economy where, and it is crazy to me that like within their model, they're predicting, yeah, okay, we're going to plant a forest the size of India, and that's just going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's like, these are experts that are saying these things that as if this is possible. But and then when you bring up like a socialist or like, you know, a degrowth model that's like, oh, we're just going to have like less energy. We're just going to use less energy and there's going to be less GDP growth. There's going to be less profit. Oh, no, you're crazy. But we are going to plant a forest the size of 2 Indias. That's going to happen. But us having less GDP growth, that's impossible. So like, that's kind of the battle. Like, that's the debate we have to have, right? Like, there's people on one side that say we're going to just continue GDP growth or, you know, continue this like consumerist, whatever, like high quality of life, whatever you want to call it. Or there's people who believe we need a degrowth, and then there's people in between. And that's like a debate That's
The
very
idea
important.
that
and
degrowth is not an obvious prerequisite for any serious solution is depressing.
Yeah, and I think it's controversial to a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I stand on it, to be honest. I'm probably one of these in-betweeners.
Yeah.
There's a lot of concern in that for me too, like how we're actually going to author something like that, but which is why
it's more realistic, right? It's more likely to happen.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things like nuclear gets up in this too, because I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. I don't care, but like I am concerned about nuclear waste and that sort of stuff. I'm also super concerned about taking off their production and to have it replaced by natural gas, right? But anyway, that's a little bit more practical than the conversation you're having right now.
Well, yeah. Just to wrap up my thoughts, I guess there needs to be a political movement to convince people that they actually will have a better life, or their quality of life won't go down. Like there'll be less consumption, there will be less GDP growth, and maybe there will be less new iPhones and fast fashion and meat and all of this stuff. But on the upside, you won't have to work as much. Like you maybe there will be a bigger social safety net, so you can have housing and food where you don't have to work as much. And that kind of solution just seems much more practical to me, because so much of the emissions are just going towards making profit, which goes to 5 people, like a couple billionaires. Whereas we could just spread the profit around a little more, work less, and emit less in the process. But I think that video game idea where you can plug in all of the different solutions to see where you end up is very interesting.
Yeah.
And before I hop off the line, I want to give a plug to my YouTube channel.
Yeah, go ahead.
I actually just last week posted a 30-minute long video about this exact topic. The channel is called Mycopath, MYCOPATH, and it's actually half YouTube videos about climate change and half heavy metal music about climate change. So if you're into metal, then give me a follow.
All right. Well, we wrote that down. Thanks so much, Ken.
Hey, appreciate it. Have a good one.
Have a good one.
Yeah, and I think one I guess sort of trial run for what possible sort of reset would look like economically is COVID, and that's why you have so many libertarian.
That's what I was
think
thinking
tanks.
too.
Yeah, that's why you have so many libertarian think tanks right now that are trying to like the Brownstone Institute and those sorts of creeps. They're trying to act like all of the lockdowns were just some massive attack on people, as opposed to what it was a pretty big mix of awful things and good things. We didn't lock down probably as much as we should have, but the money that we gave to people was a positive, and there's people that don't want that lesson to be learned, and so that's why it has to all be just 1984 what we went through.
Dave from Jamaica, great guess. Land usage is a big deal, so ban the suburbs. Also brace for angry pro-nuclear guys. Yes, I know. Prairie Fire Kowalski. Howdy, Emma, Matt, and Bradley. Your interview today was fantastic. It is interesting how the carbon sequestration plan I've talked on Left Reckoning about can fit into the future of your guests' want. One thing that needs to be mentioned, though, is the lack of labor resources in rural areas will make food production post-meat very challenging. Meat is easy, so it's mechanized agriculture, which isn't how we do most fruits, nuts, and veggies. Any post-meat future will require at least a doubling of rural populations, which will be a challenge. This is one of the reasons why I didn't mention India at risk for the looming food shortages coming up, because India has historically thrown tens of millions of people onto farms to boost yields in an emergency situation. And it basically works because you can overcome some nutrient shortages short term with pure labor power. Leftist poggers grow gardens. Really interesting stuff as well from Kowalski.
I mean, I like Kowalski's vision of urban greenhouses stocked by or worked by people. I think like a skyscraper full of just greenhouses would be awesome.
Yeah. Daredevil. Matt is totally correct about homeopathy being pseudoscience. Anecdotal experiences can be attributed to placebo effects, and other unreported factors aren't evidence. Neither are doctors who advocate it. Most of them don't. And Emma, you may have been thinking of holistic medicine yesterday, which is simply a perspective of looking at the whole body. It can be applied to real science and pseudoscience alike. Yes, that probably was it. I'm not really like, that's not an area of interest of mine, so I conflated the two terms, I think. Ty from Tennessee, source on the 50% chance of the nuclear accident over the next 30 years. You mean my guest, our guest needing to give a source? I'm sure that they're well researched in that area. Real Ace Attorney, Emma, I hope that you had a great birthday and that your wish was for Evan Neal to fall to the Giants at pick number 5. That would be incredible. I think he's going to go at number 3 to Houston. Neutrino chirality is best. I used to be gung-ho for nuclear, but I have since come to agree with Emma's point about not trusting governments managing the runoff. However, if there were a relatively safe technology that produces way cleaner energy like fusion theoretically could, it feels like a rejection is based less on facts of it and more asking people use less energy individually, which seems like an individualist neoliberal solution they're bemoaning. Maybe I'm missing something, but I also wonder if we can ever really have perfect power infrastructure, and at least the pro-nuclear people agree we need to decarbonize.
Yeah, I mean, the main problem I have, or like think of with nuclear, is like the practicality and that sort of thing. So it's like they said, the fast breeder or whatever, like the new version. I mean, that's all. You have to take the engineers on faith that they're right, that they're going to be as safe as they say they are, and that's a problem. I mean, the intermittency thing is an issue, and I am not as convinced by renewables folks that they have solved the problem of what happens when the sun ain't shining and the wind ain't blowing. I am not so sanguine about that we won't be able to do it without some other form of power to deal with that. And I worry that if it's not nuclear, it's going to be natural gas or something like that. So,
all right, let's do a clip. Let's do that Eric Bowling clip. This is a long one, right? No, it's okay. Well, we'll see how it goes. Eric Bowling here is reacting to Representative Ilhan Omar responding to a video of a bunch of maskless passengers on an airplane singing a Christian song in the middle of a flight, which is a crime to the other people on the flight. But regardless of that, she made the point, what would happen if a bunch of Muslim people on a plane decided to engage in a prayer? What would happen? My theory is that the plane would have to would go an emergency landing would happen, and everyone would lose their minds. Eric Bowling did not take kindly to Ilhan Omar's commentary on this.
But now, why not insult 2/3, a clear 66% of Americans who identify as Christian? What are you trying to appease, the 5% who are atheists? Or perhaps the 1% who say they're Muslim? Speaking of Muslims disrespecting Christians, and this one, folks, really got me. I guarantee it. Watch this. Check out this tweet by Somali-turned-U.S. citizen and then elected Representative Ilhan Omar. Check out Ilhan Omar's cringy tweet response. And what was Ilhan Omar so triggered by?
Cringy.
Turns out a couple Christians who are traveling Europe to support Ukraine refugees sang a Christian song on an airplane.
How are you not triggered by this? Look at his face. Can you pause it for a second? What was the decision there by the producer to watch his real-time reaction to this video? He just watches angrily. How could she do this? But all right, continue. I'm angry at the fact that those people were subjected to a guitar playing and singing against their will.
A total nightmare. That just makes me flash back to being in church and staring at my watch, being like, "Oh God, when can I go home and watch the Vikings?"
Keep going.
You are
It seems so bad now, does it, folks?
Yes, it seems
Again,
terrible.
on Easter weekend, Christians singing an upbeat song in Europe. And our own Somali American Muslim rep from Minnesota has a problem with that. That's rich because, first off, in Muslim countries, there are calls to pray all the time, and in airports, no less.
And they're mad about that happening in Minneapolis.
They're literally, we just played a clip of Charlie Kirk saying that even though church bells are allowed to ring in Minneapolis, they should not be a call to prayer. I used to be in airports all the time. At my old job at TYT, I don't remember a call to prayer in the United States happening. I'm just putting that out there. And if it did, I don't particularly care because it's
Fine.
not a forced audience on an airplane when I'm trying to take a damn nap.
Yeah. Also, if I have to choose between, like, in my community, do I want to hear exclusively church bells, or if I want to hear maybe a call to prayer and church bells, like, I'm fine with both.
I'm fine with both.
Who
Yeah.
cares?
All right, keep going.
So are we triggered by that?
You are.
So religious expression alongside air travel aren't necessarily the issue for Ms. Zomar. It's the fact that 19 terrorists who took down the World Trade Center and plowed into the Pentagon and tried to slam into the White House, those terrorists killed 3,000 innocent Americans. That's what we get triggered by in the name of radical Muslim fanaticism. So yes, perhaps if a group of Muslims started chanting religious chants on an airplane, we might be freaked out. I mean, it's happened before, right?
So there we go. The connection of Ilhan Omar to terrorism. She's a terrorist sympathizer. How many times have they had to mention that she was Somali American?
Also, our religious president, George W. Bush, who, to be fair, did say we're not at war with Islam publicly, but also like helped foster a evangelical community in the military. Like, I don't know, it seems very.
But what's the distinction between we are going to Iraq to liberate them, which is
I
okay,
imagine,
liberate
like-
them from Saddam Hussein, but also from their the squalor of their values. We're going to westernize them. I mean, what is the fundamental difference than, say, like doing that in the name of like a particular religion?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what? It's just 3,000 people died, in part because of the fanatics that have a downstream relationship to American foreign policy. So, like, I don't know.
In part because there was the United States' belligerent policy in the region birthed fanaticism, and also it came from out of Saudi Arabia as well, which involves our foreign policy, and we indirectly funded them during the 80s as well.
Yeah.
But point being here is that no, for Eric Bolling and for his audience, this is just scary. Muslim people are scary, as opposed to the Christian fundamentalists who are white, and it's easy to stomach when they throw their religion in everybody's face on an airplane when nobody wants to hear that crap.
Also, like, in the grand scheme of things, I'm sorry, Christianity's done far, far worse. Look at what, just in this hemisphere, what Christianity's done to indigenous populations. They're still digging up bodies in Canada. I don't even know if we've started, frankly, that process of what boarding schools or in residential schools were like in the stateside. But yeah, what do you think indigenous folks feel when they hear songs like that? Probably this even more existential horror than what Bowling feels because a Muslim exists after 9/11 happened. Gross.
Urban Socialist. 19 Muslims committed a terrorist attack on the World Trade Center. Therefore, the religion of over 1 billion people is scary to us. We are not racist.
Exactly, yeah. It's like, what if that happened? Yeah, we would be scared, and we'd be right to be scared.
Prairie Fire Kowalski. Matt, historically speaking, most people would stop going to church due to the Vikings, but your context was probably a bit different, LOL. Haha. Albert Hoffman, happy bicycle day. I guess it's bicycle day.
New York is not where I want to celebrate Bicycle Day.
Yeah, right. North Dakota Llama. Can't wait to see how the right-wingers react to buff Natalie Portman for the new Thor movie, Thor's Emasculated, thanks to woke Disney thinly veiling their own insecurities. Is that who the woman is in the Thor movie?
Buff Natalie Portman? What does that mean?
I saw that now, like, there was a woman in the Thor costume, but I guess she's the love interest? That's what I thought, right? Bradley's IMing us. But I didn't realize that. I think she was in the costume, Bradley, the Thor costume.
Oh no, she's got her arms bigger. There's a picture of her on set looking pretty
jacked.
Pretty jacked, yeah.
We need a fight club for her.
Interesting.
But she's wielding the hammer, as they say. Good for her. That's pretty badass.
Yeah, she's got some guns.
Black Swan was one of those movies. Same with what was the one on like drug addiction that Aronofsky did as well? That what
was the one on Requiem for a Dream?
Requiem for a Dream. I liked both of those two movies. I will never, ever, ever, ever watch them ever again.
That's how I feel about Aronofsky in general. Like, this is an interesting experience. Like,
yeah,
and like Pi, but I was glad it was over and didn't wish to return quickly.
Yeah, no. Requiem for a Dream is messed up. And like there's a scene in Black Swan where she rips her skin off her nail, and I still sometimes, like, once every 6 months I'll think about it late night before going to sleep and cringe so hard it's difficult for me to fall asleep. Anyway, disturbing director. All right, let's do this Sean Duffy thing. Wait, actually, hold on. Let's do the bunny thing. Need a little pick me up.
The trip.
All good. So Fox and Friends, they have a new avenue to criticize Biden. And it's not any of the substantive ways that we like to try to do on the show here. It's about this interaction with the Easter Bunny. They're convinced that the Easter Bunny is controlling Joe Biden.
The trip comes on the heels of a bizarre incident, as Brian just alluded to, yesterday at the White House when an advisor, a White House official, was dressed as the Easter Bunny and pulled the president away as he was answering a question about Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Yeah, don't talk to the press, don't talk to the people, don't talk to the kids. Alexandria Hoff has all the details for us. Good morning.
Bunnygate.
Bunnygate is right. And first, I'll say yesterday, while it was cold, it was rainy, it really was a welcome return to a very longstanding tradition here at the White House. The Easter egg roll had not been in person in 2 years, but it does seem that in that time, the Easter Bunny has gained some authority. It was an interesting moment. The president was greeting reporters and visitors. And at that point, the fluffy character physically stopped the president from answering a question about Afghanistan. Take a look at this.
Pakistan should not, and Afghanistan should be free. Oh, the Easter Bunny, Mr. President.
What does it mean? What does it mean? Who's behind the mask? Is it Sean Spicer again? Wasn't that his role?
And what he did the bunny, right?
Yeah.
I'm forgetting what the story was. But I mean, all that shows to me, I mean, is that Biden was too free with his time, and they need a task manager that's literally a rabbit to keep him moving instead of getting into arguments about Afghanistan with people. Like, I don't know, maybe the Easter egg roll is not the best time for Joe Biden to be freelancing about Afghanistan policy. Look, I think it'd be nice to have a younger, more mentally acute president,
right? Who doesn't get distracted in little interactions. But this is one of his more endearing qualities to me.
This part where he wants to yak it up about policy with yeah. I mean, they don't even. Ducey literally is like Bunnygate, like it was a joke. So yeah.
Yeah, no, but she goes Bunnygate indeed, or no? Oh, what was it? Yeah, Bunnygate indeed. That's what the correspondent was saying. I just find it funny, like who could be behind the mask? Maybe that's where Kamala's been this whole time.
I'm trying to
'Cause
think.
she
Yeah.
secretly controls him, right?
It wouldn't be Obama because that'd be difficult. That'd be a lot of work.
Yeah.
I'd rather hang out with
He needs to be
rich people, but,
parasailing.
yeah, I don't know who. There's really nobody that I mean, James Carville maybe.
James Carville would be.
James Carville would do that.
Yeah, actually, you know who it is? It's Larry Summers. Larry Summers wasn't a part of the administration, and so this is the only way that he gets to have his much desired interactions with Joe Biden. More austerity, please. Majority Report wardrobe coordinator. The Easter Bunny is just filling in until we get Santa elected and to Don Young's seat, and he can control Biden in the shadow Congress. Sean from Maryland. It's just absolutely sickening how these people continue to demonize an entire religion practiced by over 1 billion people. Fuck Sam Harris and Bill Maher for promoting that bigotry. Yep.
I agree.
Survival Sam. I'm a flight attendant for one of those big 4 airlines. I will continue to wear my mask, but it seems like most of my colleagues are celebrating the decision to unmask, and the rest of us are dreading COVID-23. I'm disheartened that an unqualified political activist judge has the power to supersede public health policy. All that work enforcing the mask mandate was for nothing. I'm sorry you have to deal with that.
Yeah, that's horrible. And that's the element of like what. So what is this decision going to put workers through? That nobody who was on the side like door of like this stuff is all an authoritarian power grab was thinking about like, and so now any worker that like cares about that stuff is screwed.
Trucknuts 420. I was forced to hear Christian praise music when thrift shopping in Cleveland over the weekend. Annoying, yep, but it's also a business, and as a business, they get to play whatever trash they want over the radio. People randomly standing up and annoying people on a plane is different unless they own the plane. I can walk out of a store. I can't exactly walk out of a plane. Yeah, it's you're forced. It's a what do you call it? Captive audience.
Yeah, I feel like that's the problem with the airplane thing. Like even if I stood up and had a Bluetooth speaker and said, "Hey, everybody, we're going to listen to Waz on the Ringer talk about NBA," like that would still be an imposition that shouldn't be allowed.
I mean, I'm such a internal Karen about some of these things because if I hear a Candy Crush or some sort of game being played out loud on the speaker and it's like bloop, zip, right? I have an aneurysm internally. Pisses me off. Wear headphones. God. Train Boy. Pretty sure the IDF orchestrated 9/11.
Thanks for that, Train Boy.
Yes, thank you. Charles Booker 2022. Deus Vult is a common refrain among enlisted infantry since 2001 and among the anti-Muslim right wing.
Deus Vult? I don't know.
Deus Vult, I don't know. No, that's not it. Day. We'll look it up. Cool name here. Our dog Sally died today. She was the best and helped me when I was trying to figure out how to live after getting clean, and then was here for our engagement, wedding, and birth of our daughter. 12 years of being perfect. Would love a shofar. Thanks.
Oh, sorry about that. One
I'm
second.
sorry. Yeah. Matt's gonna go get up and press the soundboard. Losing a dog is really, really tough. I'm so sorry to hear that. Florida dad. Before the ban, my first grade kid's math book had an example where one kid was sharing their apples with another kid under the guise of learning subtraction or some BS. We don't need that concept. All I want are to see our word problems about accumulating guns and maybe food buckets for your survival shelter. Good point.
If I shot 4 rounds in my 6-shooter, how many rounds do I have left?
Which number is this, Matt? Yeah, I'm finding it. Again, guys, we're a little short-handed today because Bradley's home. Close contact. Sorry for outing you, Bradley, about that. It's 10. Okay. So here is former Wisconsin Congressman Sean Duffy on Fox News, The Five, along with one of our favorites, Janine Pirro. But is he on the show regularly now? Is he a contributor? Do we know?
I think I've seen him on the Five before, certainly.
Yeah, he's a friend of the show, as we'd say, talking about how ethics and values in families are probably contributing to the crime increase, but he trips himself up here a bit.
Wasn't listened to? Okay, but the criminal went to jail. And that's a job.
But Judge, we're on the same side of this issue. I look at whether it's Gascon, DAs and judges and sheriffs, they're all elected by people. This is a democracy. And so we have people in LA and New York that are electing woke liberal officials that implement these policies. And then we're outraged by the crime that happens with the policy. But really the people have asked for the policy because they vote.
The policies are not what is causing this rise in crime. What's causing the rise in crime, because the rise in crime is happening everywhere, even the place that doesn't have quote unquote woke DAs. The cause of crime is the pandemic and the deprivation caused by
and the poverty that resulted from it. Yes.
Voted for these folks to take the position of power. And so if you want to change the narrative, you have to change the elected officials. And whether it's Republicans or Democrats, I don't care who. I just want someone to be pro-law enforcement. And one last point. When you look at these policies that have changed over the course of the last 2 or 3 years, and there's this explosion in crime, this wouldn't have happened 30 years ago because we had ethics and morals and values and we had families. But something's happened, to your point, Greg, in culture where there's been a degradation that when you have lax policies where you can commit a crime and just get the ankle bracelet, people are committing them where 30 years ago, they never would have picked up the gun. I said 30 years. Well,
that was the 90s. I agree with you on that. Crime was pretty bad.
Not like this.
So that's how we got to crime
No,
bills that we
worse,
all know
worse.
about. Right, up next, suspected terrorist caught crossing the...
Whoop, and they got to move past it.
So he's just a dumb guy.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't know anything about the world. What do you mean the 90s?
Every graph, every statistic has shown the precipitous decrease.
Like what we have now is a small uptick after like basically decades of falling crime from those crime rates that like, yeah, I mean, that is a very stupid person. So too dumb to like,
outsmart Janine Pirro.
To even like they had to rebuke him.
Yeah.
They couldn't even just be like, yeah, you're kind of right, but also remember this.
In a sense, it is the crimes are worse. So like
hey,
it's exponential.
You can look at it that way, but you can look at this other way. No, they're just like, you're wrong, bro. What are you talking about? We have to watch that again. That is so funny.
And also it's because like Judge Janine was a judge at one point, and she was a judge in the New York area, if I'm not mistaken, where they're targeting a lot of their criticism about big liberal cities and stuff. And she goes, no, it was definitely worse.
I mean, and even like the other ones, I don't think she's the only one that like gets on his case about this. But
well, the resident liberal
Tarlov,
woman with the glasses gets on him, but
Right.
that's to be expected. I just was not expecting Janine to do it.
I mean, what a funny guy. Let's watch this again.
Point. When you look at these policies that have changed over the course of the last 2 or 3 years, and there's this explosion in crime, this wouldn't have happened 30 years ago because we had ethics and morals and values and we had families. But something's happened, to your point, Greg, in culture where there's been a degradation that when you have lax policies where you can commit a crime and just get the ankle bracelet, people are committing them where 30 years ago, they never would have picked up the gun. I said 30 years. Well,
that was the 90s. I agree with you on that. Crime was pretty bad.
Not like this.
So that's how we got to crime bills that we all know about. Right, up next, suspected terrorist caught...
Whoop, let's move on from that. Yep.
What kind of person doesn't know that crime was worse in the 90s? 30 years ago, whenever. Like that is...
But they're constantly
incredible.
like, because it's difficult for them to he didn't expect it to get checked there. But when they're always talking about cultural degradation and family values falling apart, and we have to make that connection to
Decadence, right.
crime, it's difficult to, the lines have to be on the bar graph in terms of cultural going down or culture going down. The crime has to be going up at the same time, but he wasn't able to square that peg in the round hole.
Yeah, that's I guess the problem when you like all you really know is like you think cultural is getting decadent or decaying, right? And if it's decadent, then in the past it must have been less decadent because
Yeah.
right. So, but that's I guess maybe Sean should find like that's the problem with these cultural
Arguments.
is
But
that,
they have nothing else.
Oh,
It's
man.
always a problem with culture. In the 90s and in the 80s, the problem was culture of Black people.
Yeah, it was Sister Soldier.
Yeah, right. It was the Where Are the Fathers, and Ron DeSantis is re-energizing that with the pro-fatherhood bill that he's passing down in Florida. So it's just, I mean, it's just always a reboot of cultural arguments. But even the Fox and the Five crew was unable to accept that ridiculous.
They can't accept our baby boy Sean Duffy, who like is just
Maybe he failed his
honestly,
tryout
bro,
for a
like,
larger role.
go like play with your rattle. Like I don't know how you've gotten this far and thinking that crime's worse now than it was in the 90s. Jesus.
Speaking of crime and people associated with it, I was thinking of Ray Kelly and his wonderful son Greg Kelly there. Perhaps like Greg Kelly, we could have Duffy take up a hobby. He could do the model train thing. That might be better for him.
Or some building blocks or something.
Yeah. Those Lego Star Wars things, they're really intricate.
I don't know. Maybe we want to do with the Duplos because I think that might be a little bit advanced for Duffy.
Too many holes in the Legos. Got to be a little bit bigger.
The big blocks that aren't choking hazards for our boy Sean.
I want to do this Alex Jones thing really quick. Lee. So Alex Jones, I mentioned on the show yesterday, no, it's okay. I'll start over. So Alex Jones on the show yesterday, we talked about him briefly. InfoWars and some of the other few companies that he's associated with are filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy because Alex Jones has been sued for defamation by many people, successfully sued by the Sandy Hook victims because he claimed that they and their children were crisis actors making up the Sandy Hook shooting that massacred their children. So, as always, just a wonderful reminder of the kind of guy that Alex Jones is. And so, by the transitive property, that just means Tucker Carlson is equally as wonderful in terms of morals, because here's Alex Jones basically talking about how this new documentary that Tucker Carlson is putting out there called The End of Men, about the crisis of testosterone in the country and how you need to tan your ball sack, all came from his brain. Tucker Carlson's taken cues from him.
These are clips from a new Tucker Carlson documentary that part of it got shot on a little piece of land that I have here in Austin, Texas. I didn't go out to the shoot, but let me tell you, I sent the crew out there because Tucker's producer wanted to use a Central Texas piece of property to shoot at, and so they shot some of it. But the issue here is that this isn't just the end of man. This is the end of the humans as we know it. And what we need to counter all this is men standing up and men being men. So here's a few clips from Tucker's new documentary.
One of the biggest stories of our lifetimes is the total collapse in testosterone levels in American men. Those levels are declining by roughly 10% per decade, completely changing the way people are at the most fundamental level. NIH does not seem interested in this at all. It's not a big deal. We think it is a huge deal. So we want to know what's causing it and what you can do about it. That's the topic of our upcoming documentary called The End of Men. Here's a look at the trailer.
since yesterday, but always bears repeating.
Yeah, that's my 50 cal getting shot right there. This is adding my property. Red light on his testicles with boost testosterone. This will trigger the libtards like nothing you've ever seen.
Since then, you're in hard times. Well, hard iron sharpens iron, as they say, and those hard times inevitably produce
ice baths
who are tough. Men
Joe Rogan does it every day. He looks great. He looks
strong enough to survive.
Ice baths.
In case you guys pause it for a sec. In case you guys missed that, that was Alex Jones saying ice baths. Tucker Carlson does it Joe Rogan does it every day. It looks great. Just wanted to
That's
make
not
sure.
a normal bath. He's not just taking an outdoor bath, which would be something you'd see on a Cialis commercial or something like that. That's an ice bath. That's actually manly. It gives your testosterone a boost.
Yeah, taking an ice bath by yourself as opposed to with your wife, like you would be doing in a Cialis commercial. It's way less homosexual if you do it by yourself. Ice, totally manly. Boom. Go.
Okay, so there you go. Definitely going to trigger the libtards worse than his January 6th documentary. And I mean, I'm glad they shot part of it here in Central Texas with us, but just obviously a lot of entertainment value to this.
Why?
That's a weird endorsement.
God, I'm barely hiding the pain behind my eyes as I lose money out of my ass every fucking day.
Let me just reiterate that I am actually glad that they use my property, and I'm not embarrassed by any of this. And I think it's funny that all the liberals are triggered by it.
No, he's not embarrassed. He's thrilled, and he has some tangential connection to Tucker Carlson as he loses a lot financially right now. Although I'm sure he'll be fine, but he's in a bit of trouble. He wants to play up his connection with Tucker Carlson, who, let's be real, I've said this before. Tucker Carlson knows his audience. Tucker Carlson also knows how to cultivate a new audience, and this was Alex Jones was the OG of we're putting, there's things in the water. They're making the frogs gay. It's making you gay. It's making you lose testosterone. Like, this was his original beat. Joe Rogan took it up. Shout out to Joe Rogan. Takes ice baths every day. It looks great. And then now Tucker Carlson has made it into a more palatable form for the public. So it's all downstream from these same lunatics, and Tucker Carlson just makes it a little finer tuned, mainstream to the bed.
Well, it's funny. Yeah, Tucker has the great populist sense to not shoot the testicle tanning in Maine, and to call his buddy Alex Jones to get some Central Texas property that they can film it on to make it look just that bit more authentic. Because if you saw the forests of Maine, it wouldn't quite look as cool as Texas.
Right.
Yeah.
North Dakota Llama. Well, when Alex Jones is right, he's right. That definitely appeals to historical sense of masculinity, specifically ancient Greek masculinity. Now, where's my olive oil at? That's funny. All right, let's take a call. Calling from a 925 number. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hello? Is this me?
Yeah, this is you.
Whoa, no way.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to clear my throat.
All
How are you
good.
guys doing?
Doing well. How about you?
This is not too bad. By the way, this is Carter from Northern California. I hope you had a good birthday yesterday.
Thank you.
Emma. Good to see you, Matt, Bradley. What I want to talk about doesn't have too much to do with the guest you had a discussion with today, but I have some pretty good news and some advice.
Okay.
About unionizing. So I work at a city-owned pool around here, kind of in the East Bay in California, and we're not treated the best over there. So since watching your guys' show and also all the unionizing stuff that's been going on, I got inspired to get things started in my own workplace. And I just thought I'd give some advice on anyone who's also curious, because it's really scary, getting started with that, getting the whole unionizing thing going.
Yeah.
And it was funny, I was talking to sort of a volunteer from the emergency workplace Organizing Committee. Have you guys heard of them? They're like a nonprofit.
I have not heard of them, but keep going.
Yeah. If anyone needs help unionizing, hit them up. They're awesome.
Can you say it
But
again?
the guy, yeah, it's Emergency Workers Organizing Committee, something like
Gotcha.
that. I think they're based out of New York as well, but they have like volunteers all over the country. Completely free, by the way, if anyone's curious. But yeah, I was talking to the unionizer that they put me with, and this might sound extremely obvious, but when you're trying to get people together to possibly unionize, it seems kind of far-fetched or just out of the question. But what we've been doing at my workplace is actually not bringing up unionizing as something that's going to happen anytime soon, but we've simply just been organizing and walking into our boss's office and asking for things. Because how he put it, it's sort of like if you just walk into your boss's office right away saying you're going to unionize, it's kind of like declaring war, and they start throwing everything at you extremely fast. He gave me plenty of examples, things he's worked on, where essentially as soon as the workers, even if they had good, had a contract ready, they were well organized, the company or the city just immediately squashed them because
Right.
they just mentioned the word union. But there are countless examples of just workers getting together, similar to how a union functions, and just simply walking into the office without mentioning union and just saying, we want this, 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 and this. And it tends to work. And it's worked for me and my coworkers so far. We're on our way to getting health care. We're trying to become
Amazing.
full-time employees instead of part-time. Yeah, it's still really in its early stages, but it's been, I don't know, it's crazy. And again, I want to thank you guys specifically because, I mean, obviously, seeing all the news of Amazon and Starbucks unionizing was a big push, but I wouldn't have seen that, at least from a better perspective, without you guys. So, thank you.
Well, of course. I mean,
You really gave me the push to get me and my coworkers together because, after 5 years of complaining, we got to do something about it eventually.
so are you guys officially? You basically just asked for your benefits to be raised, and they did it.
I'm how I'm describing it is it's very simplistic. It's also a little bit funny, but yeah, that's pretty much what happened. I mean, it took a lot of organization, of course, on our level. You don't want to just go in with like a loose set of ideas or goals. You want to make sure that everyone that you're talking to, like your coworkers, you're all agreed on what you guys want. Because if I want X, but 3 of my other coworkers want Y, and they're coming into the office with me, that makes it awkward, I imagine, if you don't have the same goals.
Right.
Makes
Well,
it harder.
it fits into
to
what
get
we were
going.
saying about how yesterday we played the clip of the Amazon CEO saying it's just so much more efficient when every individual comes
Yeah.
to us with their complaints, which is
Right.
hilarious because
Yeah.
exactly what you're saying, it's way
yeah.
more efficient when everybody's unified.
Yes. It was just like, because and I'm sure you guys have experienced this before. Anyone who's worked anywhere, honestly, even in a city, which generally is a little bit better in my experience, it's terrifying to go in by yourself to ask for something. I can't tell you how many times I've had to like sit in my car and just psych myself up before walking into my boss's office by myself and ask for something, because it's like it's so fucked up how as a society we think that we essentially have to walk into a wolf's den by ourselves to
Yeah.
get something that we deserve. Like, it's ridiculous.
Well,
Since talking to this labor unionizing guy, he was like, no, do it. Like, just go in with everyone, have what you guys want ready. What is your boss going to do? Fire all of you guys? I mean, that could happen, I guess.
But that's the point too,
we're
right?
kind of a
Is
small operation.
if you're all
Yeah.
together, power in numbers, obviously. If you're by yourself, there's fears because
Yeah.
that one particular
Yes.
person has your livelihood at stake.
Exactly. And because at this point with a lot of leftists, a lot of the slogans we use kind of feel empty, but trust me, the one where it's like, alone we beg, together we bargain. Oh, I got that backwards. Together we bargain, alone we beg. So fucking true. You guys have no idea. Just like go in with a group of people. You're essentially acting more as the threatener in that sense. Sorry to use such a strong word, but it felt somehow nice to be in that position of power that your boss usually is in, when it's just you and them, you know.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, but like I said, we're not getting everything right away, but our boss is aware that, you know, we're very organized, we're angry, to say the least. So they're going to have to do something, because if we leave, then the place full. So if anyone out there listening wants something from their job, from their boss, whatever, start talking to your coworkers. Make it private. We used WhatsApp to kind of stay secretive. We met up at our own houses or in public, if that's easier for COVID, just to talk, organize. We had a Google document with what we want to achieve, right? So it's all just about being collective. And you don't even need to be the guy. You don't need to be like a leader. Just, you know, they're your coworkers. Start talking. It doesn't have to be very hierarchical, you know.
Well, Card, thanks so much for calling in and telling us that story. That's great news. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me on. Well, yeah. Bye.
Bye. Have a
Don't
good
know what
one.
else to say. Yeah. See ya.
All right. Calling from a 266 number. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 266? Going once. Going twice. 266?
Me?
Yes, this is you.
Is me?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. No, I was distracted for a moment. I'm calling from Sweden.
Okay.
Hello, are you there?
Yes, who's this?
Hi. I'm calling from Sweden. I don't want to use my real name, so I guess I'll call myself Osbjörn. That's okay?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know if you've seen news about what's happening in Sweden over the weekend.
Yes, I did see in terms of this far right politician.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's more than that. I mean, essentially, like the police basically invited him in. So it was a state-sponsored, taxpayer-funded book burning
Of
but
the
the media is
Quran.
acting like
Of the Quran, right?
yes. But the media is acting like the police is the victim here, which is outrageous. And I mean, look, here's the thing about Sweden. Sweden isn't what you think it is. I don't know what you think it is, but it isn't that. I mean, Sweden, like the Swedish police is like outrageously, comically corrupt. You still listening?
Yes.
Hello?
I'm just letting you go.
Yeah, no. Okay, yeah, no, because I mean, look, I'll give an example of just how like blatant and in your face the corruption of Swedish police is. This isn't that serious a thing, but it is indicative because I mean, look, okay, so the Swedish police have this like reality TV show, like cop style reality TV show that the television station that broadcasts this show, which is done, of course, in cooperation with the Swedish police, is like illegal. It's a criminal TV station. It's something that only exists in Sweden, basically. It's like a multi-million-dollar corporate pirate television station that broadcasts from outside Sweden to get around like Swedish advertising law.
Okay.
It's so specifically like it used to be, not these days, but like.
Hello?
You still there, caller?
Oh no, the caller just dropped.
Oh shoot.
Regardless, thank you for calling in. I'm sorry that you dropped out in the middle of your story, but people should check out a little bit more, and I want to do more research as well before I speak on it about what's happening in Sweden and the far right movement there. There's a right-wing president in Sweden. I know that, but it seems as though the far right elements in the country are gaining some traction here. That's all I can really speak on right now based on my surface level knowledge of it, but I want to do more research and maybe I'll talk about it a bit more on the show tomorrow. All right, let's take another call. Calling from a 702 number. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 702?
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Emma. This is Comrade Greeting Card.
Comrade Greeting Card. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm well. What's on your mind?
Well, so first, happy birthday.
Thank
Belated
you.
birthday.
Thank you.
I just kind of wanted to add to the airline talk
Sure.
from earlier. So I'm a former airline employee. Luckily got out of that business the beginning of the year. But I wanted to add, kind of to your hatred of them.
Yeah.
So,
Hey,
as
look,
we all know,
my
they kind
uncle's
of
my uncle's a pilot, and so I'm close. I know what the industry's like, but I mean a little bit, but they also just don't pay enough. But anyway, keep going.
yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I was gonna say, the airline that I work for, like all the other airlines, they took COVID relief money.
Yeah.
And as a function of that relief money, they were supposed to keep on employees. However, what they ended up doing was basically they kind of like pseudo fired a whole bunch of people. They kind of let them stay on, so to speak, on the like payroll for like a couple months. And then as soon as like that moratorium of you have to keep people on for so long ended, they just, fired everybody. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean that's I think there were. Can you specify about which airline it was or no?
mm,
It's fine.
maybe not. Yeah. I still have, people who work for them and, they're my friends and stuff. So I don't want to like out
Yeah.
the airline.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm sure it wasn't just one airline. I'm sure that was, multiple airlines that probably did some sort of similar scheme.
Right, and it's
Um,
just crazy because now they are not hiring enough people back. The services have gone back to the way that they were initially run, except worse in terms of efficiency and like
yeah.
refund policy. And that bailout money was supposed to prevent that kind of thing, and also more importantly, prevent workers from facing the brunt of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing too, like, business has picked back up, but they haven't really hired a whole lot of people. And so the, workers who are remaining have to pick up the slack, but aren't receiving any additional compensation. And this might actually out the airline, but they also, just moved forward with buying a whole bunch of brand new aircraft. So they have money for that, but not, to pay the employees. So, yeah.
All right.
Great
Well,
company.
thank you. Thanks for calling in and telling us about that. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
All right. John in Omaha. That Alex Jones clip was very recursive. You play a clip that played a clip that also played a clip. I want to see more levels. Let's do this. North Dakota Llama. Hey, Matt, how'd your folks handle the recent snowstorms? We got 3 feet of snow over here in western North Dakota, all set for yet more snowstorms. A blessing in disguise. We need the water.
Yeah, that's true. That it's been an insane blizzards. My mom just actually retired, and my dad retired a few months ago, so they actually felt nice not having to drive to work in the morning.
Oh,
So that's
nice.
how they enjoyed it.
That's nice that they both retired. They have any big plans?
Well, I'm going to be in Montana, I think, later in the summer. But no super major plans there. No. Yeah.
Milus Palzert. I bet Jimmy Dore wishes he never spat on Alex Jones so he could have him on the show.
That relationship could get mended.
I think so.
100%.
Alex Jones, I respect it.
I dare say I would
man's
expect it to be mended in the next couple of years. I bet they do something together.
I was about to say, and I forgot to during that segment, that I'm pretty sure Jimmy Dore is going to be talking about testosterone levels falling quite soon. Quite soon.
I wonder what Jimmy's testosterone levels are at.
Well, that's a separate question. CBDNC. Use code word MyPillow at checkout for 50% off Real American Scrotum Burn Ointment. Okay. Benny P, can we get Matt on camera this weekend in Sam's absence? I need to see those luscious locks. Well, that's not going to happen right now when Bradley is working from home.
We'll see, maybe.
How do you think we could even possibly pull that off?
Yeah, I mean, I could switch something around OBS. Be up there.
Hmm.
Oh, not up there. No, I'd be back here.
Oh,
so,
back there,
yeah,
right? Yeah. Okay, so maybe Fox is the 5. Compassion is for bitches. All right. Todd Cobell. Malcolm Nance cosplaying a Blackwater Merc on MSNBC and cable news Dems clapping like circus seals is why we can't have nice things. I did not want to talk about it on the show because I would not have had nice things to say about that.
About Malcolm Nance?
He
Yeah.
has gone to Ukraine to fight.
All
right, let's move
Sure.
on. Yep. Fox is the. I already read that one. Freddie from Framingham. Sean Duffy was such a nice guy on Real World Boston. It's shocking that he turned into such a putz. Rachel, though, totally expected. Was he actually a nice guy?
Yeah, I mean, it's very easy to appear nice on television.
Yes. I mean, I do it all the time. Daredevil. Matt is totally correct about. Oh, I already read this. I feel like we're a little lighter on clips, so I'm just going ham on the IMs and the calls. All right, let's take this call. Calling from a 308 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? 308.
My apologies. I'm just listening.
Kowalski. Bye.
Bye.
It's just like, should I even take his calls anymore? All he wants to do is listen.
Yeah, I don't know. We might need to figure out a little. Maybe there's one number you call in and one number you listen on. Kowalski.
Yeah, you need 2 phones to become a fan of the Majority Report. All right, let's do another clip. Trump book? I haven't seen this one.
Our Journey Together.
All right, hold on one sec. Where is this on the couch? Oh, right
12.
at the end here. I missed this. So I guess Donald Trump has a new book.
I've been scribbling. I've been hard at work with a pad and a pen, putting some of my truths onto a paper so they live forever.
Been in the lab with
It's a picture book.
I've been in the lab with a pen and the pad. You know, you get that, right, kids? Fellow kids? Here I am. My book is called Our Journey Together. I thought it sounded a little feminine. A little feminine because it's my journey.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the only one on the cover, though, right? It's not going to be me and Melania or me and Pence or something like that. It's just going to be me.
Our journey together. And so here's an image of just me on Air Force One.
My fellow patriots, this is your all-time favorite president, Donald J. Trump. I wanted to share with you my newest book, Our Journey Together. It's a really beautiful coffee table book put out by Winning Team Publishing. Every photo in it, and there are many, has been picked by me, and every caption is my own. The book did tremendously well. We now have more in stock. Get your copy.
It's a picture book.
I like how he's doing the
It's
captions,
a
though.
picture book, but I'm doing the captions.
Yeah, it's like I got all this excess time that I'm not tweeting anymore. Let me just go off on some photos.
not really into the long form stuff, but captions, that's more or less a tweet.
It's nice to start a publish. I assume that winning team publishing is like Trump's.
Winning.
It's nice to do that right after you lost presidential election.
Yeah, I know. I actually won.
Number one
I
loser in the
actually
world. Oh,
won.
yeah. Winning twice team. I actually won twice team. That's what the new
It's a
publishing.
double win. All right.
Happy today at 45.
Start over. We gotta.
Patriots, this is your all-time favorite president, Donald J. Trump. I wanted to share with you my newest book, Our Journey Together. It's a really beautiful coffee table book put out by Winning Team Publishing. Every photo in it, and there are many, has been picked by me, and every caption is my own. The book did tremendously well. We now have more in stock. Get your copy today at 45books.com. I think you'll really, my fellow patriots,
I think you'll really, really, really like the book.
We have more in stock.
And next time I'm going to do one of those books where you get to choose your own journey. Now I'm like the accents, I'm totally losing it. You
Yeah.
get to choose your own journey where, you pick your adventure. Go to page 12 if you make this choice, and go to
Yeah.
page 45 if you make this choice.
Go to page 3 if you want to go to Mar-a-Lago and play golf.
And every reality ends with me winning the presidency because it's from Winning Publishings. Winning.
Oh man, gonna be a fun presidential primary.
If you want to lay down on your pillow from my pillow and read this book that has barely any words in it.
That's nice. It's nice that it's really digestible for folks.
It's a picture book.
I mean, you got to respect his business sense because
people are gonna buy that.
Low effort. Yeah, exactly. You got the pictures already. Look, we got all these pictures. Just kidding. I mean, the only thing is like you probably got to negotiate the rights with the photographers, but
These are definitely official White House photographs. They
All right.
they included the Kim Jong-un thing. It's like really a horror show. You want to remember these 4 terrible years? Here it is in photos on your coffee table.
It's not tied to any sound or anything, but I do want to comment on. There's a lot of Sturm and Drang on the timeline these days about this whole libs of TikTok getting doxxed.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you about this. I don't know what's going on.
All I know about libs of TikTok is enough to be supportive of any sort of doxing effort, and hope that it's very unpleasant for the person who has been running this account, because I think it's a disgusting, vile account and is worth publishing because they are.
What does the account do?
The account takes TikToks from people. One I saw was this gay teacher saying like, yeah, actually, I had to come out to my students today because several asked if I was gay, and so we talked about it. And it was actually, in my opinion, like fine. Like that seems like a nice experience for those kids to go through. Libs of TikTok would post that and say like, look at how horrible this groomer is, right?
Right.
And that's the thing. Like now, all the right and the right and including when I say the right, Glenn Greenwald is really upset about some journalism that was directed at this account. And I will just say I do not care and support it because that account is vile and is, I think, when you run an account like that and have such a negative, nasty effect where you're just saying okay groomer to people on Twitter all day, I think you have invite some public scrutiny, and I welcome it, and good for Taylor Lorenz.
Right. I was about to say, so this is all I knew really was that because of an article that Taylor Lorenz had written in the Washington Post, she was being harassed by right-wingers for going after this Libs of TikTok account, including by Glenn Greenwald,
who is a big fan of the account, who promotes it at least several times.
Here's the opening paragraph of this piece from Taylor Lorenz, who, I mean, I can't, there are very few women in like leftist media space who currently gets more harassment than Taylor Lorenz. So solidarity with her. On March 8th, a Twitter account called Libs of TikTok posted the video of a woman teaching sex education to children in Kentucky, calling the woman in the video a predator. The next evening, the same clip was featured on Laura Ingram's Fox News program, prompting the host to ask, when did our public schools, any schools, become what are essentially grooming centers for gender identity radicals? What Matt was alluding to there. Libs of TikTok reposts a steady stream of TikTok videos and social media posts primarily from LGBTQ plus people, often including incendiary framing designed to generate outrage. Videos shared from the account quickly find their way to the most influential names in right-wing media. It's a farm system for right
and
wingers.
these sorts of like right-wing propaganda systems, like Glenn loves to protect those.
The account has emerged as a powerful force on the internet, shaping right-wing media, impacting anti-LGBTQ legislation, and influencing millions by posting viral videos aimed at inciting outrage among the right. The anonymous account's impact is deep and far-reaching. Its content is amplified by high-profile media figures, politicians, blah, blah, blah. It reaches millions, etc. It's been promoted by Joe Rogan, featured in the New York Post, The Federalist, The Post Millennial, and a slew of other right-wing sites. Meghan McCain, Glenn Greenwald retweeted it, etc. So, she names Glenn in that. Naturally, that's his opportunity to jump in because I'm sure he has notifications.
He would have been jumping in anyway.
He would have been jumping in anyway because it involves Taylor Lorenz, one of his favorite targets, in terms of how he wants to like broadly paint left media and also harass her because she's a woman.
And now he wants to redefine journalism to be only like things about the CIA or whatever, not like something giving material support to a GOP effort against LGBT people. It's disgusting. Like it's absolutely gross. And I don't know. If Glenn wants to call people not journalists, like continue for like or whatever, go on his moral high horse. I think everybody sees through it at this point. It's disgraceful.
Yeah, the account is it is a worthy story to dig into what this account is doing, what their motives are to aggressively target. It's not politicians, not powerful actors, but random people and teachers who they will claim and use as a way to harass them, that they're promoting the gay agenda, which, like, I don't know, Glenn. How do you sleep at night thinking about protecting that kind of content?
I'll just say, I just want to say her name publicly. I mean, the only problem with this report, in my opinion, would be if they pointed the finger at the wrong person and the actual freak behind this account went unnamed. But I will just say right now, it looks like Newsweek has it. Chaya Raychik. You'll find a street easy profile for if you Brown followed up by saying that by searching the phone number listed on the domain registration for Libs of TikTok, you'll find a street easy profile for a Chaya Raychik, who was a licensed real estate salesperson. Interesting, the class back, more populism. This is the sort of populism. This is the type of person who's really amenable to Glenn Greenwald's style of populism, is the bigoted real estate broker. A real estate salesperson. So that's Chaya Raychik, who was licensed real estate salesperson at Evergreen Realty in Brooklyn. So hopefully that information, if it's true, gets out, and it's difficult for her to sell real estate in Brooklyn, but I'm not going to hold my breath on that.
Yeah. And so someone like they're claiming that's doxing because she was named in an article.
But
it's basic investigative journalism, and this is you can look. It's become a small piece of like a media organization because it aggregates and then makes its way onto Fox News and right-wing platforms.
If there was,
you can look into that.
If there was a Never Trump, very famous like Never Trump account that was like actively undermining the president, the officer of her, I don't think Glenn would have said anything about the doxing of that person. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I am skeptical that he would give a shit at all. If it was like, what is that Lincoln Project?
Whatever. I mean, I don't know. Like Sean King, they were really upset about some of his tactics, which I didn't agree with. Although he's publicly facing, so I guess that's not a great analogy. But
like, I just don't. This whole doxing thing. Like, this is an account that literally posts gay teachers to be objects of hate to hundreds of thousands of people in the midst of a legal, a sort of countrywide effort to attack those people and make them feel afraid to be teachers. So yeah, Libs of TikTok, I hope it's Raychik, if that's your name. I hope it's really unpleasant for you, and I hope this has been a loss, because what you've been doing on social media has been absolutely disgusting.
All right, let's take one more call, read some IMs, and then we're going to get out of here. Calling from a 402 number. Who's this? Where are you calling from? You're the final call of the day.
Hey, it's Pat Howler from Omaha. Tell me if the wind's bad.
It's not great.
Okay, perfect. So I just wanted to talk to you about, I'm a non-traditional college student, and I'm taking a class right now called Project Management. And like my first go at college is not great, but this one I'm, a little more educated on certain things. And one of the things that this project management class is promoting, which I thought was hilarious, was this TED Talk from a guy, I can't remember his name, it's not really important, but his whole shtick is talking to corporations and getting, basically getting workers to work harder without paying them more.
Okay.
And so the teacher of the class is a project manager herself. Her name, she started the class by saying she hates masks. So that was, if that gives you any indication as to kind of where she stands. The guy was talking about a lovable slacker, somebody who is smart and I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of exactly how he put it. He's smart and well-intentioned, but doesn't work hard. And the thing he said was, you should be asking at 4:50 p.m. if there's something extra you could do to help or to work harder. And she was trying to say, when we discussed it, how do we coach empathy, or how do we make somebody care about other people? And I was like, I don't know how you explain that to other people. I don't know how you train professionally to be, a team player, I guess you could say.
Right.
It's just a very, but basically what my point is that it seems as if a lot of college courses are basically trying to not indoctrinate, maybe isn't the right word, I guess, although maybe it is, people to be good workers, be obedient workers.
Yes.
And the thing that I said to her, she was like, how do we coach somebody who's a lovable slacker? And I was like, money. You pay them more. And her answer was, is it about money? And I was like, yes, 1,000,000%. And thankfully, a lot of my classmates agreed with me. So it's just very funny because she's very clearly I can just tell you right now, she's one of the people who work under her that she manages projects for absolutely hate her. Guaranteed. They 1,000,000% are not thrilled with her. They think she's, she literally said, I'm one of those people who likes to delegate, skillfully delegate everything and make other people do the work. Like, I mean, it is just a, factory for people. Like, I mean, I just think that this is something that's definitely not unique to where I currently go to school at,
Yeah.
Just curious what your kind of thoughts are on that and like how higher education plays into that.
Well, I mean, I think it does. It depends. I gotta hang up on you because I'm echoing. Yeah. No, it's all right. All right. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the higher educator, I would say. But I would say that your experience is not dissimilar from a lot of the way that professors approach things, but it's just because we live in a capitalist society and that is a conventional wisdom. Withholding or I guess disciplining a workforce and dangling, I don't know, having a workforce compete and try to have success even when wages are being withheld and equating that with some sort of abstract morality, that's a whole part. That's a part of it. All right, let's read some IMs and get out of here. Dave from Jamaica, free speech absolutists lose me because they seem so focused on speech rights of the shittiest people constantly when lefties are being silenced, not a peep. The value of right of being an asshole over actual rights. They value right of being an asshole over actual rights. Rob from Dedham, hey, MR crew, need some sports betting advice. I don't bet much and mostly just do futures bets on my team. I just hit a plus $15,000 bet for Marcus Smart to win Defensive Player of the Year. Do I take the win or put half of it into the Celtics to win the NBA Finals? Take the win. Plus 15,000 was your bet? Hold on.
Did Smart win Defensive Player of the Year?
He just won last night.
Damn.
Dude, don't put half of that into the Celtics. How much did you bet, Rob?
Good Lord.
That was the odds at the start of the season, 15,000 plus 15,000. Can you write in again and tell us what?
Emma's gonna need to see the details.
I need to see the bet. I need to see the bet slip. Good for you. Good for you. I've never had a futures bet hit like that. That's amazing.
That's a good guess too.
Yeah. Dr. Nick, also any manufactured forest will be insufficient for carbon capture. We need complex and diverse forest systems where old growth trees are present. Madison Cawthorn fragile tree. Only shitlib I can think that got doxxed was that horse whisperer dude. Right. Illuminati Kids, available at 45 books, which is 44 more than anyone who buys this will ever read. Have you read my email? Did Trump record that clip with a potato? Yeah, it seemed like he was coming like via Zoom or something like that when he was recording that voiceover. Tojo's bald head. Say hi to Kanye for us, Matt.
I don't think I'm gonna see Kanye soon, but if I do, I'll say hi to him.
Rob from Dedham bet $5 and won $7.50. Good for you. I would not bet on the Celtics to win the championship.
No, I mean, although if you could get good odds, they might give Milwaukee a run.
They might, but do you think that the Suns are gonna win?
Last night made me think that the Warriors are going to be a problem for the Suns, and it's going to be. I'm actually afraid of how good that series is going to be.
Skippy, do y'all like Metallica? What song?
Enter Sandman.
Yeah, I was about to be like the one I know.
I used to know a little bit more Metallica back when I played guitar. I would try to learn some of that, but I never really listened to them that much.
Your friendly second shift custodian. Happy belated birthday, Emma, from your hooker side of the family. Thanks. All right, 5 more and we're out of here. Aaron is not cool. Binder had a funny tweet about libs of TikTok saying Lorenz was harassing and doxing them. Actually, just due diligence by posting a pic of her at their front door. The pic shows way more of where this person lives and location. Yeah.
It's just hard for me to take concerns about harassment seriously from a giant harassing account.
Yep.
I like if people are harassing libs of TikTok, good, that they deserved it from their actions, and that's not what I don't think that Lorenz did.
Freudian slip and slide. Crime will surely skyrocket when under a right-wing government, being trans and being gay become formally illegal. Oy, okay. Dark. Lefty Sparky, hey, have you guys seen any clips from Bill Maher's new podcast? It's really horrifying. Like, you thought he was snobby, misogynistic, liberal before he takes it to a new level on his podcast entitled Club Random. Funniest shit ever. That's so...
It's called Club Random?
Club. So pathetic.
That's so embarrassing.
That's literally like what 15-year-old girls say. Oh my God, you want to have a sleepover? It's so random. Let's call it Club Random.
What is that? Oh,
You're
man.
so random, Bill.
Yeah, the Piers Morgan interview just came out. That is the opposite of random. I'll just say that. Piers Morgan appearing on Bill Maher. That is very reasoned.
That's club predictable. Bradley, if we can pull some sound from that tomorrow, let's try and do that.
God, it looks like they're filming in like Crowder's studio.
Yikes. Tojo's bald head. Watch The Wrestler and The Fountain by Aronofsky. 2 of my favorites. Mickey Rourke's best work is in The Wrestler.
I've heard The Wrestler is great.
The Wrestler is one of the greatest movies of the past 20 years. Period. And my friend from middle school, her dad did the lighting on the movie. He does lighting work for girls. He did, and some stuff around New York City. And she plays the babysitter in one scene, and you can see her. We kind of lost touch a bit, but she is in that movie. Yes, Yeah, The Wrestler is by far Aronofsky's best movie, in my opinion. By far. Ronald Walski. It's crazy how much racism happens in the USA, and still some folks talk about how there's no systemic racism. Mind-blowing. And the final I am of the day, Entroma. I work in commercial solar, and I'm currently working to publish research showing that solar can consistently customers' peak demand on the energy grid. I think you mean meet customers' peak demand on the energy grid. I'll be sure to share when it's out. Distributed solar is, of course, just one component of a diverse grid, but it absolutely has a reliable niche. I believe you.
I would love to, you know, have my skepticism about like solar and wind and how much of the burden they can bear proven wrong. That would be my favorite thing to be proven wrong about, frankly.
All right. Thanks so much. Great show, guys. We will see you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive.